coalition of the willing. If you want to be part of a coalition of the willing related to improving the overall positioning of Kentucky as a destination for cybersecurity, education, workforce, economic development, and more secure industries as a result of that, then this would be a great thing for you to be involved in. So we spent a lot of time thinking about this concept and investigating this concept, and really. And there's some examples around the country, and so I'm going to ask Rick Halbleb, who's on the line here, who really conceived this idea and was aware of some of the other things happening in other states. So Rick is a retired senior executive with NSA and a retired colonel in the U.S. Army military intelligence branch. And so, and Rick's been helping us along the way here. So I asked Rick if he would talk a little bit about the vision for this, and then probably the best example of the Georgia Cybersecurity Center that we've kind of modeled this after. So Rick, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. So I'm Rick Halbleb, and in 2020, I retired and came to Kentucky, and I was asked to be a keynote speaker at the first Commonwealth of Kentucky Cybersecurity and Forensics Conference. And during that talk, I introduced the idea of creating a Kentucky Cybersecurity Center modeled after the one that Governor Deal set up for the state of Georgia. And what he did is he set up this cyber center to cultivate an ecosystem throughout the state where the combined talent of government, academia, and private industry would deliver affordable and relevant cybersecurity training and education. It would develop the state's cybersecurity workforce. It would solve complex cybersecurity challenges, and it would offer unbiased advice to policymakers in order to provide the state and the nation with a decisive edge in cyberspace. Well, this met with great interest, both on the executive branch side of the state government and also on the legislative, and among a number of academic institutions. So what we did was we introduced this bill. It's called Senate Bill 33, the Kentucky Cybersecurity Center, and it is truly a transformational initiative for the state of Kentucky, which is really unprecedented in its scope and impact. This initiative benefits all Kentucky, regardless of political party, income group, geographical region, or academic institution. This initiative brings enormous benefit to Kentucky in terms of workforce development, and we're talking K through 12 and post-secondary education, as well as the technical certification to workers in government and industry. Also, economic growth by attracting cyber industry partners to cooperate on cybersecurity research and business development in specific sectors like healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, and utilities. This initiative creates a public-private cybersecurity cooperation that focuses on uniting the talents of industry, academia, and government, both local, state, and federal, to provide high-paying job growth for our state. You know, there's over 700,000 vacant cybersecurity jobs in this country, with over 4,600 vacant jobs in Kentucky because we don't have the qualified people to serve in these jobs, right? And so this initiative attracts new industry, corporate revenue for our state, but perhaps most important is that it provides the state of Kentucky with a resource to combat cybercrime and critical infrastructure attack on our citizens and institutions. This is a great opportunity for all of us in academia to gather together and pick up the cause here to upgun the workforce, create jobs for our citizens that we've never had before, and to work together across the state because the demand is overwhelming. It is overwhelming, and we've got to band together as a group to work together across the state and even outside the borders to hit our neighboring states to meet the demand that's on us. So, Kevin.
Thank you, Rick. That's great. I'll just pick up on that and echo that this isn't really about academic programs. Like, we have universities that hire professors, that recruit students pay tuition, the state gives us a little bit of money to help our institutions, through the performance funding and other things. And, so really, this is not about money being funneled into academic programs. That's CPE's job. CPE's job is to fund academic programs at the institutions in the state. And so I want to make sure that we're clear that that's not what this is about, but this is about pulling together, as Rick said, the expertise that we have across the state and in supporting businesses and the state agencies, federal agencies, critical infrastructure providers across the state, and so forth. So that being said, I think that there are ways that this can help our academic programs, and that's what I wanted to have a dialogue about here today. We want the way this helps any academic programs is that it needs to help all academic programs. And so, why I wanted to bring everybody together here is to figure out, well, what is that? Like, what do we need help with? I mean, I think we all need more money and more professors and things like that, but this isn't going to solve those problems directly. But there are some ways I think we can think about and talk about. I've had dialogues with a lot of folks on here already about the concepts that there may be some infrastructure that benefits everybody, cloud-based ranges or cyber gyms or whatever, the ways we can support cyber athletes in the K-12 space. There's fewer Kentucky high school students going to college than there was 5 years ago. Every year it's going down. So we need to get more K-12 students into college. We need to get them into computer science and cybersecurity pathways. So the place where we feel like there's a lot of money to be had is bringing money into the state from outside the state. That's to enable us to do Department of Defense related research, classified research, and so forth. A lot of things that we can't do now in this state. And the other place is that we can attract federal funding to support research and to support workforce and education programs. And we have been doing that. And so I asked, and there's opportunities for more partnerships. So we've had really good partnerships with a number of institutions in the state. And I'm through some NSA grants that we've gotten recently. And I think that there's a lot more opportunity there. We've been competing nationally for those. And so we have a nationwide consortium that we've been leading, but it involves Kentucky institutions, and I think there's probably ability for it to include more Kentucky institutions. So I've asked Dr. Sharon Carrick to talk about the NSA grants that she's been in charge of in the last few years, and talk about what opportunity there could be on the horizon. So Sharon?
Yeah, so we about 2 years ago got an NSA grant with our NAECs, and then joined with some of the other NAECs in the state of Kentucky. But the way that we were awarded that via the National Security Agency was that we had to form a coalition and join coalitions with other universities in the region. And there was 3 entities of coalitions across the country that were awarded $6 to $8 million each. And each of the coalitions had 6 to 8 universities. And within our coalition, we not only included within the state of Kentucky, there was KCTCS and the Kentucky State University, Simmons College, and then various other universities within the region to form that coalition. And now we have an opportunity to also have another extension onto that, whereby we created modules with our partners that they were paid also as subawards to create those modules and also teach those modules. So they were all paid as subawards, but we now have another opportunity for another $5 million from the NSA. And so we want to try to expand that with other Kentucky universities so that we can build that coalition. And then we also have reached out to the other 2 universities that have their own coalitions, which happen to be Purdue University and then also University of West Florida, which was the other big award. And they have their own coalition to try to form a super coalition to show NSA that we're trying to build something that's larger, but also that has more prominence for the state of Kentucky with the state of Kentucky universities. Anything else you want me to elaborate on that? But that's also part of why we want to reach out here as well.
Yeah, if I can, I'll just reiterate that, folks are interested in getting involved in that, and I would say, I mean, from what I understand, that's development of curricula and offer in delivering that, right? And so there's opportunities, and so just contact Sharon on offline after this or something like that to get involved.
Yeah, and all those modules were also hosted and again created by all those universities, and they are free modules that we can send to each of you that you can utilize. There's 24 modules, cryptology, forensics, that you may utilize on your own without any of us. But they were created by experts across the country and then supported by NSA. But now we have another extension, another component that now we will utilize by the coalition, and we want to add more partners from Kentucky so that we can build the strength for Kentucky. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Sharon. So, I think that this is something that we're clearly keen on doing is pulling down, being organized across the state and being able to collaborate together to go after those types of funds. And there's going to be more funds from NSA and other organizations like that. The White House just released their new cybersecurity strategy earlier this week or last week or recently. Many of you probably saw it since you're all experts in the space. I saw it. I'm definitely not an expert in the space. So I want to turn the conversation now to kind of do some brainstorming and hear from folks on the call about ways that this kind of concept, which is still very much a concept, that SB 33 is nowhere near past the House yet, so there's politics happening. I want to open it up and ask about what are the ways that people see this being useful, either from a research perspective, from a collaboration perspective, or from a education workforce development perspective. And I'll just add one tidbit. We had a meeting with the Kentucky Department of Education recently, and it was super helpful because ADL has Dr. El Maghrabi has a grant to train high school teachers in cybersecurity related stuff, and didn't get any applications from Kentucky, or two applications from Kentucky. ADL, is that right? And then all the rest of them are from other states. And he was
2 out of 30.
2 out of 30.
2 out of 30. We have a new grant that's national that I am only a sub in it, that allows teachers to choose one of 4 universities. U of L is one of them, and I can share the link for that one. That's one in addition to the tier one.
So the Kentucky Department of Education was super helpful. So building these links across the state can help us. They were kind of horrified to hear that statistic that we couldn't find the high school teachers to sign up. And anyway, we've got some good contacts there now to help us make those types of connections to try to help build that pipeline. So what else? So let me open up the floor and see what people's thoughts are about what would be helpful, useful, what people's thoughts are about this kind of concept of the Cybersecurity Center and how it might be able to help, in maybe a little bit more of an indirect way in the academic programs that you all provide and offer to your students.
Actually, I think the topic about grants that you just brought up is a area that we're definitely interested in, making better contacts with federal government agencies who are doing holding grant programs in cybersecurity related areas, and becoming aware of those, being able to build coalitions with other Kentucky universities and possibly corporations to work on those.
Yeah, that's great. James, thanks for chiming in on that. I think that's clearly an area that, I think just being able to, I think that it's been hard for us to find out who all is, in the space across the state. At least for me, it has been. You guys that all know each other, maybe it's a little easier, but for me, it's been a challenge to identify, to pull those things together. So I think getting connected just in that way could be really helpful. Right, to know who's expert in what across the state and different institutions. Yeah, appreciate that, James. Other thoughts? It's a big crowd. I know that.
I'll chime in with one thing. Okay, just to make sure that we are hosting the Kentucky Cyber Security and Forensics Conference in Louisville in November, and I sent email to some of you. I don't know if I missed some. Please let me know. And we're planning to have it physical this time in Louisville, and it will be no registration fee, and I'm trying to raise the money to make it the best.
Great, Adel, thanks. There's not a website for that yet, is there?
I started one. It's not fully complete. I'm
Okay.
sharing it with Dr. Yarali from Murray State, and he's giving me feedback because
Okay.
he wants to co-chair it with me, and I said sure. And we'll have a committee of like advisory committee. I shared to all the CAE universities to have someone from them on the advisory committee. Then we'll have program committee, and we agreed with the journal that if people are publishing, we'll have an option to have the papers in a journal. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to make it beyond just
that's great.
What it is.
You know, one of the other features of the Georgia Cybersecurity Center that was so powerful, we heard from an industry panel when we were there, and you know, industry moved to this location and paid a premium to be in the space with other industry in the cybersecurity field, with federal agencies like FBI and Secret Service and so forth, with federal agencies like Department of Energy and other people that were all in this space, and with academic experts to have a place to come together and have programming and things like that. So, you know, so that was a real powerful aspect of it. So I think it's not just, you know, thinking about the Cybersecurity Center more broadly, it's not just a bunch of academic experts, but it's a bunch of folks that make their living doing this. So whether they're serving, you know, the financial industry, or whether it's the healthcare industry or something like that, having those experts in that kind of innovation space is really powerful as well. So the other thing I can do is, if folks want to, we can talk about what this is or isn't, because I've heard things through the grapevine that people think it's all kinds of things that it's not. We haven't, as I said, we haven't signed anybody up for anything, and we haven't. We heard that someone said we were going to do all the cybersecurity management for another university or something like that. I was like, man, we trying to get that done for our own university. We got our hands full right there. Yeah, go ahead, Sen Chung.
Yes, hi everybody. This is Samson Chung from University of Kentucky. So I am one of the co-directors of the Cybersecurity Certificate Program, jointly run by the Electrical and Computer Engineering and the Computer Science. I'm jointly with Dr. Ken Calvert from the CS side. So we have been running this program for a couple of years now, and we can see that the enrollments from both the computer science and the electrical engineering increasing every year. So it's a good thing. Couple of challenges that I have seen. Number one is that while cybersecurity is not only the technical part, it actually covers a wide range from legal to political science to many other disciplines, right? So obviously the limitation of the expertise in those areas it's showing when you are talking to students on things that you don't know. So since we get a lot from consortium, if we can organize sort of regular webinar, getting people from federal agencies, from other disciplines to give talk, we can definitely advertise that to students. So that's one thing I think that is sort of badly needed. Second thing is sort of the assignments or challenges sort of more relevant to folks in Kentucky, right? We are a lot of people, like in my departments, interested in power. Right? A lot of folks that are interested in sort of more rural agricultural applications. So many of the exercise in cybersecurity I give my students are like not particularly relevant to what their background is, and if there are sort of more on those challenges that may be a bit more relevant to sort of the background and the experience from the students, I think, and kind of share amongst the entire group, I think that will be very, very helpful as well.
Those are great ideas. I think that I know that the work that Sharon Carrick was talking about, it developed some kind of modules with different topical areas in healthcare and logistics and so forth for that reason. I think to be able to feed in different types of problem areas and topic areas. That's a great point. And I think that cybersecurity and the unfilled jobs probably, I bet there's a big component of that. Because as soon as you said that relates to the perception of cybersecurity just being a computer jockey, right? That's just a part of it. So I don't know the breakdown of those, 4,600 jobs in Kentucky and how many of those are what level of computer skills required in those, and what level of other types of skills, as you mentioned, regulatory and policy and those types of things, legal. Yeah, great points.
Maybe I'll add that the reason we got our grants was we put a team including legal, lawyers, healthcare people, business, engineering. So we put a big team, and that's what got us to win the grants, by the way. So I definitely agree with your perspective that it has to be interdisciplinary to succeed. And we build on expertise from us and from other universities. So definitely together we can create these resources for each other to make it easier for us to all succeed. Our state is not the top state in attracting these skills. So we need to work together. That's my philosophy. So thank you.
Probably an understatement, Adel, but appreciate that. Rick,
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead, Sharon.
Well, that's why we leveraged from the other universities the talent we didn't have, and the instructors and the talent and the faculty that others had, and had a profile of, different, who had, again, legal and healthcare and logistics, cybersecurity expertise, or cryptology or forensics, because all of us don't have all of that in one university. We have it across the broad spectrum, and that interdisciplinary approach, again, in our coalition, was more points on the grant than that allowed us the opportunity to continue to move forward. And then that's also the strength of Kentucky for us to leverage moving forward too.
Yeah, that's that makes me think about what are the areas of expertise of this whole large group that we have across the state. I mean, there's a lot of people on this call, and guaranteed we've got some depth and breadth in areas that we probably don't know about. Rick.
As a senior executive working in the federal government in this space, I saw enormous amounts of money that was going unspent every year, largely because either one of two things. One is people weren't qualified for it. They weren't an R1 institution that the federal government was looking for to kind of lead an effort. And they weren't centers of academic excellence in cybersecurity, or they didn't have a state cyber center to facilitate pulling all the talents together so they could compete for this money and get all this money, but it was just going unspent. And so my question to the group here is, how many of you all would be interested in taking a trip? We could set it up, we could facilitate it, and take you down to the Georgia Cybersecurity Center so you can see for yourself firsthand how academia is working together, meet with all these industry partners that are paying to play in the state among the cybersecurity interested partners. Take a look at how the federal government has integrated itself in there, and get a firsthand experience of what a state cybersecurity center would be like and how your university or college could participate in that program. Would there be any interest in everybody going down there and having a session with them?
I see one hand. At least I would take Rick up on that offer. I mean, it's a really impressive facility, and it's a really exciting concept, and and they do a great job. A lot of people go through there trying to take a look at it and kick the tires. So I think it's totally worth it. I appreciate you, Rick, making that offer. So let's. I'll stick Rick's email in the chat here as we go along, and people can maybe just shoot Rick an email and say, "Hey, I'd love to learn about that, or maybe participate in that." Yeah, that would be great. Anthony.
Yes, I was wondering if you could comment on the interest being expressed by Kentucky industries. Who do you see as some of the potentially strong industry partners that would work with our universities to utilize the center and go after some larger research grants?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've done a lot of socializing the concept around with both with agencies as well as with private sector companies, and there's a tremendous amount of interest. So I'll give you a couple examples. So there's a new initiative, the relatively new, the Metals Innovation Initiative, MI2, that is a private sector industry-led consortium of metals manufacturers, metal industry, and a bunch of universities are involved. UK, WKU, U of L, at least I know, are involved, and have projects going on. When they came together, the very first meeting, they said, they're competitors, but they're coming together because they're like, hey, we know how to make metal, but we don't know anything about cybersecurity. We don't know how to protect ourselves. So they have these common challenges, and cybersecurity was the top one that they listed at their very first meeting. The same is true of the Healthcare CEO Council. There's 14 companies, healthcare companies headquartered in Louisville, and with $100 billion in sales every year, whatever it is. And, that's a huge challenge. Cybersecurity is a huge challenge for them. For other industries like Yum Brands and GE Appliances, and it's every industry, and we can just think of the big ones that we have in the state, and we've gotten enthusiastic support where every place we've mentioned it.
I'm sorry. This is Emmanuel. So the question is, what exactly do you expect from us in terms of a commitment? What do we need to do? Because I think it is very interesting. We all know about what the other actually is doing with the Georgia place. So what exactly do we need from us? Because I'm thinking there is interest across the board. We just need to know what is the next steps.
Yeah, I think that Georgia, the Georgia Center started with a big investment from the state, right, to build a facility and to hire someone to kind of be the CEO of this and drive that forward. And so I think those are the next steps. I actually have another job that's like my full-time job. This is not my job at all, right? And so I think hiring, and then there were some really low-hanging fruit that were expressed when we met with Kentucky Office of Homeland Security, Department of Education, other, CISA and other groups like that. The idea, and actually the private sector companies as well, the concept of having cyber ranges available for their use was like the highest thing on their list. And I know that we all have some level of cyber ranges for educational purposes right now, but I think that there's a lot more opportunity for more sophisticated ranges and so forth that can serve those different needs. I would say one of the critical needs is the critical infrastructure in the state of Kentucky. I think the Kentucky Office of Homeland Security is under the gun to identify what even is the critical infrastructure in the state, and there's an executive order that they need to comply with. They don't even know what the critical infrastructure is. Never mind that it's protected and it has some level of security. So, the state agencies are really under the gun in a pretty big way. So, from my perspective, I would love to get this thing funded. In fact, every other day I have a conversation. Can't we do this without the state? Can't we just figure out another way to pay for this and get it built and move forward without having to bother the state, because it's a bother. And I'm all ears if there are other ways of going about it. But right now there is a bill to kind of formally establish this concept, right? This entity, and then the next phase really would be hiring someone that's going to drive this forward. But I see this as a collaborative effort that's really about opportunities for you all to be engaged in new and productive ways that improve your job, that give you better access to, jobs for your students, or examples for your classroom, or, projects that, more academic curriculum development that you might benefit from or get paid to do or whatever. So kind of all of the above. It's really about the opportunities that this would afford us, I think, and us pulling together in constructive ways that are going to go after those opportunities. So right now there isn't really an ask. Like, I think it's that the ask, I guess, is like, does this sound good to you? Like, would you be interested in being a part of this? If this means, opportunities for you, opportunities for your students, right? Serving the businesses of the state and the agencies and so forth. That's kind of how I would characterize it.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, it is. Because one of the big issues that we see a lot today is the students, they are looking for the opportunities to do internship. What they gonna do? If there is no places, there is no offers, and of course when they get out of school, if they don't have the opportunity to do internship, are they gonna be good professionals? Maybe not. Do they have certifications? Maybe not. There is a lot of things that needs to be, we have to think about this even before they finish.
Yeah, and just on that, that's another great concept that this could really help with. Is that organizing place for internships and co-ops and those kind of opportunities that can be available. And we actually were approached by a private sector company that places students in internships. And so we said, yeah, we would want to partner with you, because they've got this outward facing, collection capacity for pulling those internships kind of across the country together. And so anyway, there's an opportunity to have those types of productive partnerships that as well, right, with private sector companies that do internships for a living. Thank you. Melanie.
Hi, this is Melanie from Bluegrass Community Technical College. And I just wanted to put in that I see real value in having hubs across the state, or many hubs across the state. They're going to represent the different institutions, the size of institutions, the types of institutions, and how they can contribute. So I'd definitely be interested in visiting Georgia to see what their model is. And I just wanted to make sure that we're, as we're looking at this, we look at kind of that as part of it as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. We had, I don't think Michael Lasavio is on here. I mean, one of the great things about the way that we have cybersecurity organized, I'll put organized in quotes, at University of Louisville, is that we've got, Andrew Wright's here from the business school, Adel's from the engineering school, Sharon's from the whatever Sharon, she's from everywhere. Jeff we have College of Education. So we've got a lot of expertise, and Michael Lasavio is from criminal justice, and he's got a great story about a cyber training grant that he ran, and had a lot of trouble with completions with people across the state, for law enforcement across the state, and the magic solution to that was, you got to bring the training to the people. You can't be training law enforcement in Western Kentucky and thinking that they're going to come to Lexington. It just doesn't work. And so there was a really poor success rate until they developed the partnerships. And I forget who the partnership was, whether it was WKU or I forget where that ended up. But
actually, they went on the road to multiple locations, not just one. So,
yeah. So Melanie, it's a point well taken, and I think that if we think about some of the needs, so for example, the needs related to industry, in manufacturing industry spread all across the state, or the critical infrastructure that supplies water and electricity, and that it doesn't just go down when there's tornadoes, right? It goes down when there's cyber attacks as well. So I think that distribution is on our mind, and I think, what does that look like? How do we accomplish that? But I think you're 100% right, and that's our intention. That the ways that this can support one academic program, it needs to support all the academic programs. And I guess I would even go just one step further and say that the big part of what the Georgia Cybersecurity Center does is it fills a niche that's not the academic programs. It's not the bachelor's and the master's degrees or associate's degrees. It's the credentials. It's the upskilling. In fact, when we met with the Kentucky, I guess it was I think it was Office of Homeland Security, they said, we need upskilling. Like, we got people, but they need to get more skills continuously, and we don't have a place for them to do that right now. So that we're interested in that level. And so that's a different model than enroll in getting a master's degree, but it's a model I think that we can embrace, and we have to figure out how to offer those. And so I think the extent to which your institution wants to offer those or wants to be involved in that, I think there's opportunity there. Rick?
Yeah, so the Georgia Cyber Center, for example, brought in high school students from around the state, and they asked them right at the beginning of the morning, they said, hey, how many of you guys would like to have a career in cybersecurity or thinking about getting a degree in cybersecurity support? There was nobody raised their hand. They didn't even know what it was. They took them around the Cybersecurity Center, introduced them to government people, to industry people, to academics, and gave them exercises and games to play. At the end of the day, they said, how many of you guys would be interested in being a cyber athlete and getting into a cyber program and getting a degree and having a career in this? Everybody raised their hand. Everybody raised their hand, right? It was so enthusiastic. And so the challenge we're going to have is getting into the K through 12. One of the challenges, getting into the K through 12 and putting together a cadre of faculty at the high school level to grow a generation of cyber athletes. We need to upgrade. We have 50 colleges and universities in the state of Kentucky, but only 6 centers of academic excellence in cybersecurity. We need to get the other schools accredited and into this thing so we can fill all these jobs. So when you look at the demand, we've got to get more schools involved. And so a gentleman was saying, what's the next step? Well, the next step for me would be make the Kentucky Cybersecurity Center a theme for our conference this year, but more importantly, get some hands raised from all the colleges and universities saying, hey, I want to participate in this. There's a willingness in my school to participate in this, both in terms of engaging industry, engaging federal grants, engaging the high schools. We want to play. And to me, that's what this VTC is all about, is will you play with us?
Yeah, that's that high school pipeline is such a critical need, and I don't pretend that we're going to have all the answers to that in this group of people, but I think that we can work, as you described there, Rick, and we can work together with the partners that we have in the Kentucky Education Cabinet and with our local schools and so forth. So I think that there's real opportunity. I mean, I think it's an imperative. I just saw the most recent data on high schoolers going to, from Jennifer. There's Jennifer on the call. So, we're doing worse and worse every year. We've got this goal of 60 by 30, right? 60% going on to higher education, and we're going backwards right now. So, I don't know who has the answers to that. I think that we might not have all the answers, but I think that we can play a really important role. And if we can have the effect that Rick just described that they had there in Georgia, then maybe that's a place that we can help out. And I think maybe we can help out with the hub, the regional hub concept that Melanie suggested. I think is getting some support there. I think it's a great idea, and that would really help with that kind of outreach as well. Right, training for the K-12, absolutely. Yep. Yeah, I know that we don't have a great, and in fact, somebody else on the call here, I can't remember who, but somebody else also wanted to reach out to K-12 teachers and didn't get a response or didn't have the list or something like that. And I forwarded the Kentucky cabinet contact for that, to whoever that was, but I'm blanking on who that was, so forgive me.
Maybe I'll add another resource that hasn't been utilized. We managed to get the NSF scholarship for service grant. We were the first in Kentucky to get it, and I want to encourage others to do it. It's like in 4 or 5 years, it's $3.4 million to pay students to be in this field. So I want to encourage others to do it. We can team up and encourage others to do it. We got it, and from the first try, which was really a surprise that we were able to get it. We were thinking we may be rejected in the first try, and we got it this year only. And I want to encourage you all to do it, because that's an attraction for your students to go in that field. It pays about $25,000 for undergraduates and $34,000 for graduates, plus tuition, plus money to go to a conference, and it requires the Office of Program Management in the federal to help them get an internship and get jobs when they finish. So there are opportunities that we can share our experiences together, I think, because the whole idea is to raise the bar for everyone.
Thanks, Adil. And Kevin, I see your comment in the chat there. I mean, I agree with you, but I also don't think we can ignore it. I don't think we can ignore, if we're going to pull together this kind of thing across the state, we have to pay attention to K-12 also and recognize that there's challenges there and do our part, I guess. Jennifer asked a question in there about participation in the Air and Space Force Associate Cyber Patriot competition, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, so I can talk to that. So there's a number of cyber programs out there at the high school level. Cyber Patriot's one of them. Gen Cyber's another. And there's tremendous work being done in other states like Texas, for example. San Antonio has a great statewide program that the legislature there enthusiastically supports and throws money at, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create this generation of cyber athletes, and beginning at K through 12, the challenge they're having is most parents, they're not cyber athletes themselves, and so they're not mentoring and coaching their kids on a career in cyber. You talked about aerospace. Look at Colorado. They started a cybersecurity program, and unlike Kentucky that might go manufacturing or transportation or healthcare, they went aerospace. Georgia went defense, right? And so one of the things we need to talk about at the next cybersecurity conference is, hey, collectively, what industries do we think we ought to focus on? Because we need to pick those industries, because when you build this place, they will come. Everybody will come. And we've got to say, hey, what sectors do we want to play in, right? That are going to be good for our, and that's a conversation we as a group need to have, to say, what does Kentucky want to be known for? Just like Colorado is for aerospace and Georgia is for the defense industry, what's Kentucky want to do?
So that, that's a great question, Rick. So the Kentucky EPSCoR program, and Kate Webb's on the call here, or she was on the call at least, and is doing a science technology plan for the state right now, and being informed by a lot of great data. And Jennifer Ozawa was on the call, and she's the lead from RTI who's doing that work, and really interesting data that we can use to inform a decision like that. So for example, manufacturing is a big part of our economy, healthcare is a big part of our economy. So there's some natural places where it might make sense to focus our efforts on cybersecurity around manufacturing and Industry 4.0, right, or something like that. So I'm not suggesting I have any answers, but I think that there will be data that we can help to drive that. So while we were talking here, and I think somebody whose face isn't on there anymore prompted me, Hermano perhaps, but anyway. Somebody said, "What do you want us to do?" or something, right? So,
yeah, me.
That was you. So, what about this? Like, what if we stand up a web presence and get connected in some way for a Kentucky, conceptual Kentucky Cybersecurity Center, and we get everybody on, get all these people on there, even if it's not something that's public, at least it's something that we can use. to have knowledge about not only the programs but the people and the areas of expertise that we have across the state. I mean, I've been trying to put this information together, and it's killing me.
That's exactly what I was thinking about. Like, for example, as I gathered the information from different folks here from different locations, universities, and there is a lot of people involved in exactly what we discussed. So do we know them? Do they want to be part of this? What type of knowledge? So it's like a bank of resumes and say, okay, I'm interested about this. I can contribute with that. I know that you mentioned that you already have another job. We do too, and maybe more busy than anybody else. But we still want to kind of, like you said, have a presence in Kentucky. We want to be recognized as, a state that really are taking the opportunity right now with all these different challenges that we are facing in our country. So it is important for us to, if the K-12 teachers, they are not so much involved, we need to let them know that, hey, this is important. We see the students that they leave the university. They are looking for something much better than they had. So are we continue to do the same thing? No, we need something much better.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, the other thing that putting that together would do is the comment from the UK guy about who do we, I need to offer some different problem sets, or I need some different examples, or I need to talk about regulatory issues that I'm not an expert in. So if we put this thing together, you're going to have a list of guest lecturers who you can get in to talk about current regulatory issues, right, or something like that. And that might be super useful to everybody across the state also, to be able to rely on other folks to bring in. So it's a coalition of the willing. So, Anthony, great ideas there. So I'll say this. I guess I'll say if I'll commit to trying to stand up some independent conceptual center with language that says what this is and in concept and why we're doing this, which can just be that we're trying to collect our assets here and build on one another and collaborate across the state and so forth, and then folks that want to include their name and their information and their program information and things like that could do that.
And also their willingness to go down to Georgia. If you just send to Kevin at this place, hey, we're willing to go, we'll arrange a trip down there. And, when you go down there, Ray Charles can see what we're talking about when you walk in that building, right? When you see it all come together, it's so rich and powerful that you get really excited about it. And sometimes people just don't know it until they can see it. But I guarantee you, if you come down there and see what they're doing and how they blend the industry and academia and government together, you'll see the potential we could have here in this state. But I will tell you that the demand exceeds the current supply. And so my real question is, will everyone play in this? The state needs everybody to play in this. Your region better than anybody. And so your school systems, your industry, who your government partners are. So will you play in this concept of a Kentucky Cybersecurity Center?
And I see your passion for that, Rick, and I appreciate so much, because that's the type of, we're going to have to do something more than we are doing. Definitely. And you mentioned about the Georgia. I have been, I think since the conception of the place, I have been kind of looking and see the progress, and it's amazing. It is amazing. I don't have to go over there to see. I want to, but I don't have to go to see what you are doing, because there is really a lot of things going on over there, and everybody, I'm pretty sure that's going to be satisfied when you have this in Kentucky. So definitely.
Yeah.
They created 14,000 jobs, and the center generated $1.9 billion of new economic revenue for the state, right? The energy department came down because, like Kevin said, they were interested in utilities, the utility infrastructure. Department of Energy came down and built a cyber range so they could take a look at the critical infrastructure for energy and say, hey, what if there was a cyber attack on our electrical system or our water system? What would that look like in a three-dimensional cyber range to show what is the effect of this cyber attack, what systems are currently being affected, how long would the engineers take to fix what it is? They extrapolate out the damage and say, where is this really going? How does the governor going to react to this? What do we need from the state and federal government? It's all down there. I want you guys to see that. We need to create ranges for ourselves and for our different industries. But you guys got to play into this thing because you're the smart guys.
It's not including me in that one. All right, so we're at the end of our time. So I think that we are. So next steps, I'm going to work on getting a website stood up that has some language that people can say, yeah, I want to be part of that. And I think that collectively we can through this effort raise the knowledge about this kind of education, the need for this, the interest and excitement in it. We're not going to have the war room that the Department of Energy had at the Georgia CyberSecurity Center till we can build something like that. But I think collectively we could still raise the bar on this issue for the state of Kentucky, where it's not quite there at the moment. I mean, it's coming, and I think that there's a lot of awareness of it at the state level. But I think from that doesn't mean that the floodgates of students are enrolling in cybersecurity programs. I'm sure there's more capacity to fill programs up. So if people want to, email me their questions, comments, anything. I stuck my email in the chat there, kevin.gardner@louisville.edu. So feel free for any of those things. Melanie asked the question of will this concept be to have one physical location or multiple? So the concept that we have I think it's a good question, and I really like your idea of a hub and spoke model or a regional hubs or something like that. So I don't know if it's conceivable that we're going to build multiple buildings and whether that makes sense or not, or whether there's, right now we conceive that there's one building and we've got a lot of interest from a lot of folks like the local FBI office, like the Secret Service, like some of the companies that are headquartered in Louisville. So we've got, an interest in that from them for that facility, whether it makes sense. And I guess Hermano was asking me, like, what are the next steps? And I was like, hire a CEO for this thing who can run it. Part of it is to your question, Melanie, is like, well, what's the business case for this? And I think that's a really important thing to make. So we really need, I don't want to ask the state for money if there's not a clear win, right? A clear business case to be made for it. And I think that if the business case can be made that there should be one of these in Bowling Green and there should be one of these in wherever else, then absolutely, that's something that we should be putting forward. Like, this has to work for the state, and so we need to make it work for the state. And so whatever that looks like is what it should look like.
Or even a central location.
In Bowling Green?
No, I said, or even a central location.
Yeah. Adel?
Yes, I've been thinking about regional hubs from the beginning, and my thought is the center would be like one initially, and the regional hubs are virtual. We are to utilize what is there until we build the case for more, Yeah. But my thinking is every one of you has probably facilities that we can leverage them initially as regional hubs, and then we can really, based on what happens, we raise the needs for extra facilities for one other university. I mean, the state will always take these requests, and they can be integrated in the other universities' requests. But initially, I think we should not ignore the philosophy of everyone who is willing to be a hub. Meaning, for example, if we have student competitions, we do them in the regional hubs, then we maybe group together to have a statewide competition, things like that. So we can integrate the region and the state together, and I think that would be the beginning. I talk too much. I'll stop.
That was great, Adel. It's almost dinner time for you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining late on a Friday. Feel free to follow up with any other comments, questions, whatever, to me or to anybody else that you feel like on the call. I appreciate it. And as we move forward, we'll take some of these next steps. I'll let you guys know, if this bill ever passes, you'll all be the first to know. I'm trying to put together a distribution list so we've got something that's coherent for all the folks that were here and invited to this call. So, I'll put that together and make that shareable. So at least we'll be able to all contact one another in an easy way, and then we'll move forward with a website concept, and then the trip to Georgia, organized by Rick. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.